Hello and welcome to episode 136 of The Thing About Golf, the podcast from Golf Australia magazine exploring the myriad reasons people get so obsessed with this game. Rod Murray with you to introduce an episode with a bit of a difference. Over the years, we've had plenty of the game's best professional players join us on the podcast, but there is another much smaller group who could have taken that path, though chose not to. This episode features one of those people, two-time Walker Cup captain and decorated amateur, Colin Dalgleish. Dalgleish has spent a lifetime around the game, and early in life, professional golf must have looked a realistic option. Add to that he's been good friends with our man John Huggan for most of that time, and this conversation has an added element. Like eavesdropping on two lifelong friends reminiscing about the good, the bad and the ugly that life dishes up to all of us, it's a discussion about golf, but also in many ways about life itself. It's an engaging chat with lots to chew on, and I hope that you enjoy it as much as I did.
Okay, welcome to the latest edition of the Thing About Golf podcast. My guest this time around, in the interest of full disclosure, is someone I've known for just over half a century, which makes him one of the few people in the world who can remember me with a full head of hair. Having said that, Colin Dalgleish, what was and is the thing about golf for you?
Well, yes, John, so indeed it is over 50 years we've known each other. What was and is the thing about golf for me probably hasn't changed over the years. I suppose it goes way back to beginning golf when I was 9 years old, first lesson. So right through my life, it's been a part of my life all the way through. It has been competition, it's been friendship, it's been opportunity for university, education, business, great friendships through golf, directly, indirectly. Did I say represent my country? I think maybe I did, but all that stuff, the buzz of competition, the enjoyment of social golf, and it's pretty much been with me all the way through my life. And I think maybe like most of us, but not all of us, my golf has certainly gone somewhat downhill later on, but I think that's maybe reasonably common. But yeah, it's been a huge part of my life and continues to be.
Because you didn't have to go very far to find it either. I mean, you were literally across the road, were you not?
Nope, that's correct. We moved family home from Old Kilpatrick up beside the Erskine Bridge down to Helensburgh when I was, 5 years old. And our father took us across to the golf club to get lessons when I was 9 and my brother Gordon was 7. So, and up to that point in time, my dad had played football and tennis. My mum played tennis, but they never played golf. So basically all the family got into golf at that point in time. And as you said, the family home was directly across the road from the golf club. So at that age, it's a case of you're pretty much across there every waking hour, and you're playing, 2 and...
Dad never had to worry about where you were.
Absolutely, all very safe, and you're playing 2 and 3 rounds a day and so on. And it just all kind of evolved from there.
Now, there was a great statistic, which you'll have to remind me of slightly. Your father's handicap.
Yeah, that's right.
Tell me what it was.
That's right. So he never really quite peaked on the golf course, took it up, but he used to, because my mother, who let's see, I think she became club champion at Helensburgh Golf Club, the ladies, on 2 or 3 occasions, I think, and her handicap got down to say 8 or something of that order, and Gordon and I were obviously both down in around scratch, and so he used to joke that he could He could add up his wife's handicap, his 2 sons' handicaps, double them, and he still got 2 shots aside.
And he was something like that. Yeah. He was. His strengths were off the course.
Yeah, yes. I think he peaked at 22.
Yeah. Now, this is a question I often ask in these things. But so when did it become obvious that there was some talent there, and was that part of the attraction? You thought, oh, I'm good at this kind of thing.
A very good question, and I honestly don't know. I imagine if I discovered I was pretty bad at it, the appeal would not have been there. And I suppose at that age, typically, if you're playing a lot, you are probably improving at a reasonably fast pace. And so I'm trying to think when I remember playing the Dunbartonshire under 12s or whatever, and I think winning that at some stage, and then get on from there to play in the Scottish boys and events like that. And of course, it was back then when you and I met for the first time, I think, at the Scottish Schoolboys Championship at Eastwood Golf Club, which is sadly no longer there, but just off the...
I can't remember who won it that year.
I don't know. Oh, I see that you go to... In fact, that was... Thank you, John. No, that was... I won the Scottish Schoolboys that year in 76, and I won it in 77 at London Links, I think, and I won it in 78 at Carnoustie. And I always remember, and I digress a bit here, John, but I remember at Carnoustie playing with Lindsay Mann, 36-hole round, 36-hole day, and playing the 18th at Carnoustie, and I had a 7 to win it. The shades of John Vanderbilt here, but I remember laying up short of the burn, and I think I shanked my third into the burn, took a drop, hit a wedge onto the left side of the green, 2-putted for 7. So unlike John Vanderbilt, I managed to close it out for my 3 Scottish schoolboys in a row. But yeah.
So run me through the amateur golf progression. I mean, you achieved pretty much everything I would imagine that you wanted to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, I was no major game plan. It just kind of evolved. Scottish junior golf. So you played the Scottish boys. Never won the Scottish boys. I think. Unlike yourself.
Well, I wasn't going to mention that.
Well, that's right. But I think semi-finals, quarter-finals, British boys lost in the final of that. But played in the Scottish boys team, played in the British boys team, captain Scottish boys team and British boys teams. Good success through youth golf. But also the opportunity to go to America, came in. And obviously you were there as well. But I had the opportunity of going to America in 1976. And the opportunity actually came about via Mark McCormick, Mr. McCormick of IMG. His sons, Todd and Breck, were playing in the Scottish Junior Open Championship at Brassey Golf Club. And we met at that point in time. And then a letter came in the following January inviting me to go out and play in this event up in Buffalo in New York for a junior event. He was trying to kind of support and kind of get up and running. So that was a great opportunity to go there. Went over there. And on my second visit there, I won the event, this East Aurora Junior Masters. That had a pretty strong junior field, and that opened up the opportunity for going to college in America. And went to Ohio State University when I was just before I turned 18, I think, and I was there for a couple of years. And played on the golf team there alongside most notably John Cook, who had just won the US Amateur Championship, and Joey Sindelar, who played in the PGA Tour after that and Seniors Tour. Guess I'm bouncing about a little bit here, but that kind of ran in parallel.
I'm going to back you up a bit.
Okay.
Well, what did you think of? Did you realise what a big deal McCormack was at that point?
Well, it probably yes and no, because really, I mean, at the time he was the man. I mean, it was a handshake deal with Arnold Palmer, and then he would control the big 3 at that point in time. So yes, I suppose pretty much aware of that. And I said, but on that note, I mean, there's been a great family friendship since then, because we'd go over there and play in some junior events and stay at the McCormick household, and Todd would come over here. So to this day, we still stay in contact and play a little friendship cup called the Brassey Vase, which we do every year. Todd and I and a couple of other friends. But that was it. That very much opened the door for America. And who knows? I mean, if that hadn't come along, would I have gone to America? College? Don't know. Like a lot of these things, they just come along and, you go for it.
What was the Ohio State experience like? I mean, how...
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to get to... I'll ask you the inevitable question about why you never turned pro, but how... Was that an influence on that? How did you compare?
Yeah, well, I think actually when I went there, and Ohio State University golf team was pretty strong then. But it was a northern team, and obviously started seeing more of the power moving down to the south. But they were still, it's where Nicholas had gone to university, Tom Weisskopf had gone to university, and it was a great setup there, but it was still north. And I remember when I was when I was kind of being recruited to go there, and it was in July. And I went to Columbus, Ohio, and it was like 100 degrees. And people told me, well, in the winter it can get pretty cold here. And of course, being 16 years old, coming from Scotland, used to Scottish summers, you're thinking, wow, how can a place how cold can it really get? It's 100 degrees, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I discovered fairly quickly that it can get cold in Columbus, Ohio, in the winter. But I went there and I had a great first year. And I was playing kind of in the travelling squad of 5 and 6. And I think maybe 3 weeks before the NCAAs, which were at Winston-Salem, North Carolina, I won the Northern Intercollegiate, which was at the Scarlet course of Ohio State University. It was our home turf,
right?
Over 4 rounds, and pretty strong field. John Cook was second. So I mean, it was a right when I look back. I mean, it was a great performance. I didn't then subsequently make the 5-man team for the NCAAs, but the Ohio State team, our team did go on and win the NCAAs in '79. So we still have a gathering of that squad of 12.
Right.
Different reunion at 25 and 45 years, and we're still all hanging in there. But I was, at that point in time, I was the freshman and first year team player, and I'll always be, even at 64, 65, whatever, I'll still be the youngster in that squad. But it was so it was a great experience. The kind of second year didn't work out so well. My golf was kind of coming off; it wasn't really working, and I kind of stepped back a bit from there. So
when you look back at that now, though, was that a influence, or how big of an influence was it in decision not to turn pro eventually?
I don't think coming back from there sort of impacted any decision not to turn professional. But I think that I came back and went to Stirling University and was still playing in the GB&I team, and I also had won the Scottish Amateur Championship in 1981, and I knew I was a decent amateur golfer. But when I looked alongside some of the players I was playing with in probably more to the Walker Cup, John, in 81 than to the Ohio State experience. But in 81, the GB&I team, Philip Walton was in that team, Ronan Rafferty was in that team, US had Hal Sutton and Corey Pavin, Jody Mudd and so on. And so I just, in my heart, I didn't think I was a good enough player to make it in professional golf. And I still think that's the case. And I was still, at the time, after that Walker Cup team, when Ronan and Philip were turned professional and Roger Chapman and some others, it was a case that they're turned pro, and I was still at university back at Stirling by then, and it didn't seem the right thing, so I just plugged away and got my degree from Stirling.
Yeah.
And that was
no easy task, that.
Well, no, not at all. Got that accounting degree, which has stood me in good stead. The left-hand column from the right-hand column, But
I don't know if you remember, I tell this story that of a game that you and I played at Formby on the eve of the Amateur Championship in 1984. And what strikes me now as moments of madness, it was you and me against Colin Montgomery and Philip Parkin, who was
did we beat them?
The whole did we ever? But I don't know if you remember this as well as I do, but I remember turning to you after a few holes and saying, have you noticed anything about Monty? How much incredibly good he was all of a sudden, having not even been in the Scottish team the year before.
Absolutely. No, that's right, because I remember that incident very, very well, and just how quickly Colin had got extremely good.
Yeah. Way better than us.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then even after that, when he was, played in the Walker Cup and so on, amateur for several years, then even when he turned professional, I don't think anybody forecast the success he would have at that level, because really nobody, generally the path to the professional golf at the highest level and Ryder Cup and so on was through professional golf. It wasn't through amateur golf. And Monty was the first. Absolutely, he was 20. Yep. And so some parallels there probably with Padraig Harrington as well. But you're right. But Colin turned pro after 2 Walker Cups, and I'm going to say within a year he'd won the Portuguese Open, and then he won 8 Order of Merits. His first Ryder Cup was I think 89 or 91 as Kiowa. So yeah, but I think that been another thing of golf. Been very, very lucky over the years to have played with and seen in action some incredible players. From back in the era when they were sort of almost keeping up with them, to then players that involved with through the kind of captaining of teams, or just players I've been lucky enough to play with in different situations. I know you maybe got some questions there, John, but just remember playing with like Tom Weisgoff, for instance, at Helensburgh Golf Club, local club, when he was, he spent a couple of summers across, actually staying over at Design Loch Lomond. Yeah. And we had a fantastic 18 holes at Helensburgh with Tom and his son.
Magnificent player.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah. And some others that I have played with over the years. So these opportunities that come up, it's amazing. But
I was looking at your record, afresh. I'm pretty familiar with it, obviously, but 81 would be I would think the best year. You won you've got the Scottish Cap, won the Scottish Amateur, played in the Walker Cup at Cypress Point, got 6 out of 6 for Scotland in the Home Internationals that year, was it a bit of an anticlimax after that? I mean, not maybe that's too strong a word, but
No.
Was it motivation that you're basically just doing everything again after?
Yeah, I don't think it was motivation or lack of motivation that kind of led to the decreasing success. I genuinely don't know. But 81 was an incredible year for me. And I'd obviously started, I got back from the US, the opportunity of going to Stirling University to be the first sports bursar there in February of 81. And I'd got on to play in the Scottish team, as you said, win the Scottish Amateur Championship, Walker Cup, etc., etc. And 6 out of 6 playing at number 1. Home internationals, I mean, it didn't get much better than that. And
But it was only 5 points more than I got that week.
well, yeah, you tough matches. But yeah, 82, Scottish team 82, 83, and then I graduated 84. And, part of it might have been that we started our business in 84. And so the focus was kind of elsewhere. Maybe it was just a lack of talent. I don't know. But it was, 81 was definitely the high point. I do remember that, obviously Scottish Championship was fantastic. My brother, years later, in 1992, I think, won the Chinese Amateur Championship at Mission Hills. And, I've been a great 4-round score there to win it. But as he enjoyed saying to me, asking me what the population of Scotland was at 5 million, he said, well, he was the champion of 1 billion people. So,
Yes, I've heard him say that. Yeah.
But 81 was probably the high point of my golfing career.
Yeah. So, at what point then did you make the decision that you definitely were not going to turn pro? And why, 2-part question, what brought you back from Ohio State to Stirling?
Yeah, I think that it was, Ohio State was, it just wasn't quite working out for me that second year. My golf was a little bit off. I wasn't making the travelling squad. And, one thing led to another. And so it wasn't working out for me there the way I'd hoped. So I came back with no immediate definite plan as to what my plan B was going to be, other than going to keep on playing golf and so on. And that's when I was approached by Dr. Ken Moran and Dr. Ian Thompson at Stirling University, University of Stirling, which and about the embryonic sports bursar program that they had. And I will always be grateful that I signed up for that opportunity. And I loved my time at Stirling. And back then they really almost didn't have a golf team, or the golf team didn't even play in the Scottish University Championship because the semester system at Stirling didn't line up with the more traditional way that the things fell. But very quickly, Stirling went on, and it's gone from not having any golf program to now it's just this entirely different league. Mm-hmm. It's massive and it's great.
Figures,
totally dominant. Yeah. And I know, obviously, as discussed, Dean Robertson, who now runs the whole program at Stirling University, has done an incredible job there, and now being captain of the GB&I teams for St Andrews Trophy and Walker Cup. But Stirling really has been a great university, and sport is a very, very big part of the university, as you know. And it's been great for golf, and you see that people have come out there. A lot of exceptional players. Katrina Matthew, for sure, absolutely. What a huge stand-up, what a talent, amazing. But a lot of other good players who've been there. Richie Ramsey was there, and I'm sure there's a lot of players. I know that even our 2 pictures are up on the wall there somewhere.
Well, yeah,
somewhere.
Sure it looks like me anymore, but I am there. Yeah.
But I mean, I guess just hopping back to first kind of international golf experience. I mean, I do remember it was, I think, the first time you and I played in the team together would have been at Sunningdale, 1976, and it was a baking hot summer, and it was fantastic. And I've seen some photographs of that team, and it was an incredible experience being out there playing for Scotland.
Well, I think I'm right in saying that it was the first time Scotland had won in about a decade.
Okay,
something like that. So
okay, I didn't remember
that. Big deal for us to win.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was, I suppose back then it was a case of there's a Scotland sweater, there's a sleeve of balls, on you go.
That's right.
On you go. But it really was an amazing...
the officials always had better gear than us.
Nicer blazers.
Yes. I want to double back again slightly. The Walker Cup this year is going to be played at Cypress Point for the first time since 1981. So I wanted to tap into your memories of the course, how it went, Jody Mudd, etc.
Oh, Jody Mudd, you have to mention that name, it was... I suppose it was an incredible experience to go out there as part of that team. I remember we stayed in the lodge at Pebble Beach, Cypress Point, incredible golf course, not hugely long, but very contoured, very fast greens. And I think that the whole experience was great, but probably as extreme as the golf courses can be in terms of in and around the greens. I think that a lot of the best US players are very used to and very comfortable with the pace of these greens, which are running at instant meter, 12, 13, whatever, 11, 12, 13, and way up there, way beyond our normal comfort zone that we would have over here, even when the links golf courses are rolling as fast as they'll roll. And I think that does make it very difficult.
Well, plus back then you'd be much less familiar. You would be the exception, but there wasn't too many of the team that had a lot of experience in playing golf in America.
Yes, absolutely. And I think you're right. Nowadays you've got a lot of, say, GB&I players who are either have spent quite a lot of time in the US and are more familiar with these kind of conditions, or indeed are traveling around the world far more. I mean, back then I think we were certainly more used to much more sluggish greens, and that's a pretty big disadvantage. On top of that, you see the level of talent in the US team. Even at the time, Hal Sutton and Corey Pavin were up there.
Yeah. Was it intimidating? You remember? How did you feel?
I do remember it feeling a little bit intimidating, just because this was pretty elevated stuff.
Yeah.
But I think, we lost not by a huge amount, but we lost by enough. I mean, it was a comfortable, and it might have been, I forget the exact score, but I mean, we were never, it was from fairly early on, we were always sort of, it was a little bit of an uphill battle. I do remember then, the following week going to the US Amateur Championship was at the Olympic Club.
Right.
And it was at the two courses there, the lake course and ocean course. And I remember just how there was a time when the USGA would set things up.
That course was brutal.
Brutal.
Yeah.
And I do remember it was 2 rounds of stroke play, and I shot like 148 or something like that, and qualified in the top 10 probably. And the qualifying cut for the 64 was like 278, so some of the order. And Nathaniel Crosby, Ben Crosby's son, he got in a playoff and that, and went on to win it. But I just remember the setup there being so punitive, heavy rough, which I don't actually recollect from the time at Cypress Point, strange enough. But I do remember Olympic course just been brutal. But yeah. But the Walker Cup experience, of course, you've got the incredible drama of Cypress Point, of the holes at 15, 16, 17, 18. I think I played in 3 of the 4 matches. I lost my first day singles on the 18th to Joey Rassett. Took a bogey on the 18th at Cypress Point, which I should never have done. But it's a
17 hole course on the planet, apart from that horrible thing at the end.
Yeah, and it's a short par 4 dogleg up the hill. Managed to hit a bunker bogey, so I lost that. Won a foursomes game the next morning, and then lost to Jody Mudd quite comfortably in the afternoon.
Yeah. I don't think it's any disgrace now. It would be something like level par, I think, would you?
Well, yeah, I think I was supposedly something like that. I think in around there, but he was on fire. And then obviously after that, he went on to when he turned professional, he won the Players' Championship, he won the Masters, before he then went on to start looking after his horses in Kentucky or something.
That's right, he retired by early, didn't he?
Yeah, but
like yourself.
But he could still play. He could still play. But it was, and then after that, I suppose on my slightly downhill golfing trend, I was, I think, second reserve for the Walker Cup at Hoylake in '83, but never made it. And then it was after that, I was kind of hung on into the occasional outing for the Scottish team, but it was by then I was seen.
You're a bit like myself, and you're 1 minute, gone the next.
It's some great times in these Scottish teams, didn't we? And it was,
it was a great. It was very different from now, I think. I mean, for example, myself as an example, when we played in the European Team Championship at St Andrews, with the big party on the Sunday night after it all finished, I got up at 6 o'clock the following morning to drive to Ayton in the Borders to start working the bank at 9 o'clock.
Absolutely.
Nobody's doing that now.
Oh, no, absolutely not. No, it was, now it's very much full-time commitment to, amateur golf or elite golf with a view to turn professional and so on. But back then, yes, we all were in education or jobs or some form of work through the winter to,
Do you like the way it's gone?
I don't know. It's difficult to say. I mean, unless you're totally a part of it. I mean, our era was what we talked about there, education and playing in that and working and so on. Now it's where it's at. So it's difficult to comment unless you're right in the midst of that stuff. But I know that back then you worked, hard on your golf, but I mean, the benchmark was just everybody else you were, competing against. And now
It's inevitable.
Yeah, now, and I suppose, you think about the first golfers that started to really look like athletes, probably be Adam Scott and Tiger Woods or someone of that order.
Yeah.
And now golfers, if you look at them, they're probably hard to tell apart from other athletes because they're so honed, they're so fit, they're working, fitness and diet and mental, et cetera, skills. So it's the standard has gone so high. Was it more, would it be more enjoyable for them now than it was for us? I don't know. I know that we had a great time doing it, and you had the buzz of of competition and, individual competition, and also been alongside your teammates for Scotland, for GB&I.
The rules and things were very different back then. I mean, although some of them we paid more attention to some more than others. I mean, I remember our couple of trips to Ireland that were perhaps not quite in keeping with the R&A rules of amateur status.
Maybe close.
But yeah, I mean, that's a good thing that's changed. I mean, that way it was almost so archaic back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it was, and there has been a natural progression to allow people playing amateur golf to just enable them to do it, because before it was just so difficult to be funded. The funding wasn't there, and it's entirely changed now. It's entirely changed now. So I mean, the line is very, very.
I mean, they're almost professional.
Yeah, they are. So it's elite golf, and I think that R&A, USG are keen to have anybody who wants to be involved in amateur golf. They should be able to play in amateur golf, but it's just that it's a different animal now, and the people that are playing high level amateur golf are 17, 18, 19. In our era it was occasional youngsters like that. But,
the Ronan Rafferty who was exceptional. That kind of thing. Yeah,
and you would have people in the team up to their late 20s and 30s and so on. And now you just don't see that. And actually, you probably see more of that now with kind of seniors amateur golf. 55 in amateur golf, isn't it? And you've seen some players who, maybe they did play in the Scottish or English teams before in amateur golf. And I mean, some of them didn't, but now they have become particularly good players.
What sounds a little bit interesting. I mean, you and I have perfect examples of that. I speak for myself, with no interest in playing in those things because we did it. And maybe that's part of it. We see guys now playing for the Scottish senior team in English, the guys that never played back then, but now they still had the incentive, I think.
Yeah, no, and you're saying no interest, John, but maybe if we were playing better, we might have been.
Well, I'm not claiming that I gave it.
But you're right. I think it's probably generally it's got most appeal to players who didn't, for one reason or another, didn't manage to play in the amateur team, and now they've got the time, the money, the commitment, and they train so hard, and it's almost like is that seniors amateur international team golf is now closer to probably what we did in amateur golf.
Yeah, I'm sure
30, 40 years ago.
Level of play,
yeah.
I wanted to ask you about, we were talking about rules there. I know you were on the equipment rules, whatever the committee's called it, the R&A for a bit. What was that experience like? And I mean, I bang on about this a lot. It's for the, people who've listened to this will hear me, probably sick of it, talking about distance at the top level and how the game's less interesting than it once was and blah, blah, blah. I mean, what was your experience of trying to make a difference with that stuff?
I think that, yes, I was on the Equipment Standards Committee at the R&A for a few years. They looked at that very, very closely, as you know, and there's a lot of, great minds that have applied themselves to what an appropriate solution is, but there's lots of, competing situations and all the rest of it around the world. And I know that, in an ideal world, all the great courses of the past would remain very relevant and very playable, et cetera, and it's becoming an increasing challenge to do that. But there's so many competing factors. And
for example?
Well, just in terms of, obviously, manufacturers, for instance, I mean, understandably, they want to make sure that they have got a product that appeals to the wider audience that they're selling to. You know, when it comes to maybe reining back the golf ball or whatever, then you don't want to have these players feel like they're hitting it shorter because they want to feel like they're moving forward and so on. And then you've got the issue of bifurcation. Do you have that? Don't you have it? There's been some, you know, model local rules that can be adopted about club and ball and so on and so forth, or that's been all looked at. And maybe at one stage it's a combination of, you know, sort of club and ball to make it more skillful in driving, perhaps. But, you know, there's a lot of science behind all of that stuff. You know, I don't know what the answer is going to be. I mean,
I'm listening to you. I would have found the whole thing so frustrating because I think you'd have more patience with this than me. Certainly, I'd have been saying, right, let's just do it. And no, I don't care what Titleist think or whoever thinks.
Yeah, but I think it's yeah, it probably is.
It wouldn't be immediate that reaction. It'd be after a while of frustratingly trying to get something done and failing.
Yeah, and so and honestly, I don't know where it stands right now because there's, you know, a lot of people that have got to buy into it from RNA and UST are you know, independent governing bodies for rules, etc. And they're trying to set it up as, you know, best they can. And then you've got the, you know, competing interests of the tours and what the tours want what the game to look like under their watch and so on. So it's all fairly, I know in some ways you think, well, this should be incredibly simple. We just reduce the golf ball or whatever. And I can assure you, I mean, one thing I know from that is it's not as simple as we would all like it to be. Because everybody, even if you got something that looks like it's a good answer, there'll be parties.
Would it make that much difference to the punters? Would they even notice? I mean, people with bad technique have no idea how far they're going to hit it anyway.
Yeah. Well, and I know you could just argue, well, you know what, just move forward. I mean, the answer is, you know, if it's going shorter, move forward, as long as you're benchmarked against everybody else, you know. But it's, but I think that the spectacle of golf with the distance they're hitting now, you know, is good in some ways, but not when it kind of seems to sort of take the sting and take the value out of some of the great courses.
I mean, the old course at St Andrews, again, people have heard me say this before, but I get asked, you know, well, where would you go back to? I say, well, you go back to the point where they started messing around with the old course, with tees off the premises and all kinds of nonsense like that. That's where you stop it. You know, that's a monument that should be preserved, I think.
Yeah, I think it's now, past that. That would be a very, very, very big rollback.
It would now.
Yeah. So
you've missed it. Maybe there's the argument now is the person have missed their chance.
But I mean, I've been was involved in that committee between maybe 2000 and 12 and 2016 or something of that order. So it's you know, moved on, you know, since then a lot. So
So did you find it frustrating?
Yeah, well, it was a lot. It's a lot.
Trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, but I think that it was, you know, because it had been looked at for so long. You know, while there was hope of there being a solution, I'm not sure there was any immediate major expectation of there being a solution right there and then. And I have lost touch with that a little bit, to be honest. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Where's it at right now in terms of it is pretty much on the ball right now.
But how much did you learn? Was it an illuminating experience, the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the level of technology involved in it, and the level of science involved in it, and the people involved in it, and their skill sets at the technical level, and, you know, in terms of what they can report on. Because even if you rein the ball back in, statistics will still show that it's the finest of margins, but the longer hitter still has an advantage.
Well, as it should.
Yeah.
But my argument is always that it's become so disproportionate.
Yeah. So, so I don't really have any more to add.
Oh, yeah. You're not going to...
No.
With something...
I guess, I think everybody in golf would have some frustration that there's no, you know, immediate solution that satisfies the issue of the courses being sort of, devalued is the wrong word, but, you know, and keeping it all together with recreational golf as well.
Yeah. Moving right along, I want to talk to you about captaincy.
Yep.
You did 2 stints here,
Yep.
home and away at the Walker Cup. It's become quite a science lately, the captaincy of golf teams. I'm just wondering what it was like. I mean, we're talking 15 years ago more when you did it. What was your philosophy going in, and what did you try to bring to it?
Well, I think it was, once you've got your team lined up, it's just trying to kind of give your players the best possible opportunity of success, and making sure everything was lined up for them, that they were well supported, that they were well prepared at the venues, as far as you could possibly do that. They were all playing, competitive amateur golf at the time, playing their own kind of circuit, etc. So you would see them on these different events, different tournaments. And I suppose at that point in time, team selection was more done by a selection committee rather than on the world ranking world amateur ranking system. And I guess now it's a part of that, and a part of the captain's picks now more, but a selection committee, and that's how it was done.
So how much say did you have?
Well, there would have been chairman selectors, but the captain had a vote and was fairly well represented.
Did you get the team you wanted?
Did I get the team I wanted?
First time?
First time. Yeah, I mean, there would have been discussions about who would be, who all the players would be in. Like most situations, it's the last, 2 or 3 players. I mean, 80% of the team picks itself, and there's always very subjective and so on and so forth. And, you make your best judgment at the time with all the factors. And, I would have said that I got pretty much the teams that I was, hoping for at the time. But, ultimately, did these teams work out? Probably the ones for, Royal County Down, 2007, was the one that we came closest in, to win. And again, probably, you look at clearly we had, an exceptional situation there where you had the huge, teenage talent of Rory McIlroy in Northern Ireland, his home turf, and the matches there. And we also had Danny Willett, who, was probably one of the later players in that team with elite starts that year, but went to win the Masters, and Lloyd Solomon, and some, very strong players. The US team.
However, American team might be, some people argue it's the best ever. I still think 75. Their team was better, but I'm going to list some of the players they had that year at Newcastle. Fowler, Horschel, Johnson, Kirk, Nost, Cooney, Simpson, and Stanley. Nearly all of them, there's major champions in there, and most of them won tournaments on the PGA Tour, would go on. I mean, that was an incredible...
Absolutely incredible. And I'm trying to think, at the time, you knew that they were good players, but you didn't know what they were going to go on to do.
Right, yeah.
But they were, it really was an exceptional team when you look back. And I suppose that actually Ricky Fowler, he stayed and played 2 years' time.
Again, yeah.
But it was a strong team, and we did come very close, within a point effectively. And
did you sit down afterwards and think, what could I have done different? I'm sure you did. But
yeah, but it's you just give it your it's what ifs. And I know that even it came down to the last game, pretty much they came on the 18th, and Jonathan Moore, I think, playing against Nigel Edwards, par 5, and Nigel had knocked him, or he was pretty much making a 4, and Jonathan Moore hit his second shot from long way out, and it just kind of scampered up and ran up to pretty close for the eagle. And if that hadn't happened, of course, etc.
Yeah.
But it was a amazing occasion. I do remember that. Very disappointing not to manage to do it, because previously prior to that had been some pretty good runs of home wins under Peter McAvoy, Garth Bajimsey.
Yeah.
So 2003 at Ganton, I believe, and then 99 at Nairn. They won that, which was fantastic. And obviously in the middle of that, there was a 2001 an away win at Ocean Forest, which was a big win to do that. So there had been some, so 2007 was disappointing.
I think, I mean, you look at their team though, and what they went on to do. I mean, you never, as you say, you never quite know at the time. Yeah. My goodness.
Yeah. And then you go at 2009 Merion was a different situation, which probably goes back a little bit to, we had some strong player. I mean, Tommy Fleetwood in that team, but it goes back a little bit to even the comments about Cypress Point and the pace of the greens and the challenges and so on and so forth. Because Marion is a golf course squeezed into a very small piece of ground with a sort of unique combination of particularly short par fours and pretty long par fours to make it fit in the ground. And we rolled over pretty badly there.
Did you do anything different? I mean,
no, it was pretty much the same, the same game plan, and we did the preparation the same, etc., etc. But we just got off to a bad start, and it went from there. But obviously, from that team, Tommy Fleetwood has been the one who's gone, and then from the St Andrews Trophy team from 2008, year before, Shane Lowry was in that team,
right?
And Shane was actually he would have probably played at Marion. But I do remember...
Well, he won the Irish Open, didn't he?
He did win the Irish Open, and it was funny because in maybe early April of 2009, he called me and said, would it be okay if rather than playing the Brabazon Trophy, which was the English Amateur Stroke Play Championship, the kind of relevant counting event, if you like, for the Walker Cup selection, if you took up an invite to play in the Irish Open as an amateur? And he was concerned it might count against him. I said, absolutely not, Sean, please go for it, with our blessings, no issues there. And of course, he went out and won it as an amateur, which was fantastic. And he could have actually hung back, and his tour card would have let him play an NF European Tour through until about 2011 or something of that order. But most people were just going, Shane, take the money. And he took the money.
Yeah.
And
but it's worked out pretty well for him.
Absolutely. I think, Shane's a great guy, and the success has been incredible, and winning the Open and the whole thing. So he's long list of very successful Irish players.
Get back to Newcastle. It was obvious even then that McIlroy was something special. Yeah. How did you deal with him? Any different than anybody else? Because there's a case, you can make cases for it.
Yeah, no, I think that, Rory was great in the team in all aspects. I couldn't fault him in any way. He was only 17. He played with Jonathan Caldwell, if I remember correctly, also from Northern Ireland. I don't think that Rory played as well that week as he would have wanted to have played. I'm sure that's the case, but it was a a huge amount of pressure on him, playing the Walker Cup, but playing right in his home turf. He was, even at that age, he was, he was the big star.
What was 17-year-old Rory like?
He was great. If you look at him in terms of his body shape, etc., there in versus now, is entirely different. Yeah. But he just had that great talent, that flair, and he wasn't scared of anything. He would take it on, tackle it. He could choose some low rounds, and he was first rate, and he was very much integrated. He was part of the team as he'd been part of the team in the Irish teams that he played in, and there was no kind of prima donna attitude at all.
I'd be shocked to hear, because I know him reasonably well.
Yeah, and he was great. He really was, and
he's very quick as well, smart. There's a good story. This is years later. We were doing a swing sequence of him for Golf Digest at the Players' Championship, and Tom Callahan, who writes for Golf Digest, he was doing a story on Rory, so he was hanging around as well. And we were out, wherever we were, doing the swing sequence, and the clouds came over, so I had to stop, and we paused. And Tom Callahan had lived in Belfast for a year and was giving Rory, telling him he played his, Jerkwater course. He said, because Hollywood's not the best course in the world. Yeah. And this is back in the mid-90s, where Rory would have been about, just a toddler, or not much more than a toddler. And Callahan's going, I would have kicked your ass back then. As Rory turned to him and said, I don't know. He says, I was pretty good when I was 6. So he's quick. He's a smart cookie.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He was good in the team for sure.
Yeah. Well, so how would you sum up your captaincy philosophy then?
Well, I think it's not to get in the way of the players. They've got the talent. Most of them are pretty well organized individually in their own games and what they are doing. I think it's just setting up everything, all the facilities for them, all the preparation, in a way that's, nothing is detracting from their ability to perform. And trying to work with them on the foursomes pairings to kind of make sure you've got a kind of a plan A and a plan B. So just, you want the players to be going in not burnt out, not over prepared. It's getting that balance of what you do in the lead up to the event, so they have a chance to see the venue. But it can't be sort of flat out 100% pace in the 3-4 days before it. You got to give them some breathing time.
Has it moved on from then to what it is now? When you look at it from afar, certainly the Ryder Cup. I mean,
yeah, well, that's science. Absolutely, I think that you're right. And the Ryder Cup, it is pretty much a science. And obviously they've got pretty much unlimited budget for whatever's going to be done, and they've got everybody there and all how it's fit together. But it is it is when they look at all the stats of the performances of individual players and different this and different that, and who they get involved. And I always think of I'm going to say, well, it's now 10 years ago, but in the Ryder Cup at Gleneagles 2014, when Tom Watson, Paul McGinley, and when the captaincies were announced, it was Tom Watson, obviously correctly, I mean, much revered in Scotland, the British Isles, and world superstar, and Paul McGinley, and he was Paul was entirely happy to play up to the kind of daft wee kind of Irish laddie.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, in the background, he was unbelievably meticulous.
He changed the way it was done.
Absolutely, and just transformed it, and just hugely impressed by everything that he did there. And I know that after that Ryder Cup, then a couple of times he would be speaking at PGA dinners or whatever it was at, and he would talk through all the stuff that he did, by way of example, and all the folk he had involved, and that really totally raised the bar there. But I think it had always been, being moved up. I mean, right back from the Tony Chandler days, but even Colin Montgomery and so on.
It was much more gut instinct.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tom wasn't more from an era of, right, lads, on you go out and play. You both get on with it. Yeah. And now it's and you're seeing more of that, correctly so, with Walker Cup as well. Mm-hmm. Now,
do you like the way that the selection policy for GB&I has gone? I mean, back in the day, there was, as you said, there was a selector from each country. I mean, I got myself into trouble. It's too strong a word with Michael Benalik. I wrote a column saying that under this system, we've never picked the best team ever, because there's too much politics, too much parochialism, and now I would think that it's much more objective. And there's nobody sitting there thinking, we need an Irishman or we need a Welshman or we need another Scot or nonsensical stuff like that. I don't think that's been eliminated.
No, I mean, I know that, if you look at how the structure of the selection committee was at the time, one from Scotland, England, Ireland, Wales, plus the chairman, plus the captain, you could have seen that as a possibility. But in my experience, I honestly never felt or experienced any particular wrong push for a player based on their nationality, been pushed by the selector from that country. I mean, I'm sure at some point in time it has happened in the past, but I can't say that was ever in my experience. I know that now it's pretty much down to, well, there's a number of automatic places, and then the captain picks them. So it's how the captain's going to see it. Yeah. It's a big responsibility, but I think that
would you have preferred that?
It's difficult to say, now looking back on that, would have preferred it. It's quite good to have.
Well, you live or die on your own.
You live or die, yeah. But I think that it's a lot of ground for one captain to cover in terms of seeing all the players. But I mean, the captain's going to have some, official, unofficial, kind of vice captain type players out there, kind of being his eyes and ears, so. I think that the selection committee thing had its time perhaps, and I think now is probably more consistent with what happens at the Ryder Cup. And of course, the Ryder Cup wouldn't quite so many captains picks, but
they now. I mean, Luke Donald's going to have 6, I think.
Okay, sorry. So it is, it's just that, I think that's.
So how do you see the captaincies evolved since your time then?
So since my time, and I think, every kind of area has been analysed more, as we've kind of discussed, getting more along the lines of what's happening at the Ryder Cup. The Ryder Cup obviously kind of setting that, and I think you're seeing that then, flowing down through Walker Cup, and I'm sure the same at the Scotland team level, Irish team level, and so on.
I mean, did you even look at stats and things back then?
Yeah, you did look at them. You looked at them in the context of performance of different events. I mean, you looked at it through they're playing in the Amateur Championship or the Lytham Trophy or the Brabazon or, stuff in the US. Mm-hmm. And I suppose now a thing with the
that was just scores. Did you look at, the actual games? I mean, especially this year, I mean, I would imagine that Dean Robertson, who's the GB&I captain, it's going to be picking maybe not necessarily the best 10 players, but the best 10 players for that particular golf course, which is a very particular golf course, which
yes,
you touched on already.
Absolutely, because of the nature of it and the experience that players might have had and so on. So yes, and I think that in the context of that, Dean really is I have no doubt he's going to be an exceptional captain. I mean, he's done an incredible job at the University of Stirling, and obviously was the captain of the Palmer Cup team as well. And his, the people, his experience, the people that he knows, and how to get the most out of people and how he's mentored people is really quite incredible. So I know that he will pick. I feel very confident he'll pick the right team for that. But he's going to to actually be out there and actually watch all the players is tough. We talked about he's got his eyes and ears out there.
He's got a great assistant in Raymond Russell. I was going to. Did you lean on anyone in particular?
Well, no, just probably on the individual members of the selection committee. I would have said, and they had all been internationalists in their own right. They either played in the Walker Cup or played in Scotland, Ireland teams, so they all all knew what it was about. And he'd be out there.
Funny, I was never asked.
You were never asked. I don't know why, John.
Not sure I would be the good fit. Yeah, but yeah. But yeah. So for Dean, rather, if I think about the Great Britain Ireland team stuff, context of the Walker Cup, there's so many players that are now at college in the US and are playing over there a lot. So opportunity for seeing them perform over here is limited. But there's enough players playing in the US that there's some form of benchmarking, because a lot of the GB&I players who are there, they'll be competing in some college events alongside others. So some form of that there. There's a lot more information to go on now.
A lot more information to go on, and ability to gather that information and just look at it and analyse it and so on. But you're right, I do think that the golf course are going to Cypress Point. That will come very much into the thinking of Dean, of the team that they ultimately pick.
And going back to you again, I mean, how much did the golf courses influence the selection? Did it at all?
To be honest, I think that where we were playing, it would have. Did it influence it? I mean, I don't recollect it kind of influencing it in a huge way. As in somebody was entirely unsuited.
Yeah, I mean, this year they're going to be picking wedge players and putters. I mean, for obvious reasons, but I'm not sure whether.
Yeah, but
it's an extreme example.
Yeah.
Cypress Point, I think.
Yeah, I think it is absolutely. So yeah, I don't remember it being influencing hugely. But I think that, and I'm sure Dean will be very open with the players that are looking to get picked about, the nature of the golf course and what needs to be worked on and what he's looking for. Mm-hmm. Beyond the absolute stats of the performance of whatever, and also, so, and on that, significant that the Walker Cup is moving from odd numbered years to even numbered years. So, for whatever reason, to line up with something else. And so when you're doing that, the choice is, are you going to have a 1 year gap or a 3 year gap? So it's a 1 year gap. So then you get the St Andrews Trophy rolling into that. So you've got the St Andrews Trophy, GB&I against the Continent of Europe, which is going to be in July of this year, 2025. And then the Walker Cup against the US is going to be in early September 2025. And then in 2026, you're going to have the Walker Cup again at Lahinch in Ireland. So it's all fairly condensed. So it'll be interesting to see the team that might be picked for St Andrews Trophy of July 25, how that compares to the Walker Cup team and 6 weeks later.
With Dean's presence, they've gone to, finally, probably through necessity as much as anything else, the run out of candidates has got career amateurs, if you like, and they've got pro.
Yes, absolutely. And I think at this point in time, that is good. And I think it's also great. I think Katrina Matthew, being the captain of the Curtis Cup team and winning Curtis Cup team, having captain the Solheim Cup team as well. So I think that there was a time when it was only it had the non-playing captain required to be an amateur, even though there's quite a number who are reinstated amateurs. Mm-hmm. But I think that, the way it's now at, I think it's entirely appropriate and it fits well. But yes, I mean, there was a time in the past when finding a captain was relatively easy from the pool of past players who were still amateurs. Yeah. But as more and more players have turned professional, then that pool becomes smaller and smaller. And, even in the likes of my captaincy, I mean, I played once in the Walker Cup, and there's captains who played once or twice, but there used to be, in the days gone by, some of the captains that played in it 3 and 4 and 5 times. Yeah. In the days of Sir Michael Benalek and Charlie Green, and Joe Carr and David and so on.
Yeah.
And then that pool gets depleted as now you're seeing the Walker Cup is, I think it's only probably fairly recently that you'll have Walker Cups where there's not a single player in a match who has played in it before. And so that's, you know, as you're seeing players at 17, 18, 19 played turn ones, if they're good enough to be selected for the Walker Cup, the level that they're at on both sides of the Atlantic is such that there's a pretty strong chance they're going to turn professional at the first opportunity.
Yeah, I see it as a good thing. I mean, and everything. I mean, it's a few years ago that Peter Dawson, in his time at the RNA, asked me for reasons unknown. It was one of the few times I think he cared what I thought about anything. But anyway, he asked me what I thought. I said, well, I don't see any problem with it because you've got any number from Podrick to Monty to Roger Chapman to you know, a great list of guys that would be eminent, really qualified to do it.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree, because I think that there are players, exactly some of the ones that you mentioned there, who have all actually, they've played in the Walker Cup and they really, you know, appreciate all it's about. They've turned professional, they've had successful professional careers, and they're still professional, and they would love to give back and be involved.
And they would they get a respect just from the play.
And that's, I think, what we're seeing with Dean. As a past player who's had success in professional golf, and, you know, in addition to all the stuff that he's done post-professional golf, that probably uniquely qualifies him for that. I guess sometimes if you're looking for a past Walker Cup player who's played at the highest level of professional golf, you might have a situation where they're not prepared to or be in a position to devote the amount of time that Dean has. It's not just a ceremonial turn up for the match, and I think it takes somebody, you know, whether amateur or professional, they've got to be committed to it.
Even themselves out of senior golf.
But it's got to be a time commitment.
I don't think Podrick Harrington's got the time to do it now. But in 5 years' time.
Absolutely. I think so. And I think that would, it's good for the team. It's good for the event. So I you know, more than happy with that.
Okay. Again, moving right along, I wanted to talk to you about you've run a very successful golf-related business for a long time now. Are you a better businessman than you were a golfer?
I don't know. I was probably the same. I just kind of hung in there, and with no major game plan, but hung in there.
But why Perry Golf is the golf travel company for people who don't know. Why that at the beginning? You had to make a choice if you were going to go into business.
Absolutely. Well, I suppose back then it was simply the kind of circumstances that I had graduated from Stirling University in 1984. My brother Gordon was in a golf scholarship in the US, had graduated from College of William and Mary. He was involved with the American Junior Golf Association for a year in their marketing thing. And at that point in time, the year before, I had, you know, driven a couple of groups around Scotland for a company that was doing it, very embryonic, of trips to Scotland. And so, you know, back then there was golf travel almost didn't exist. Yeah. And we thought this was an opportunity to bring, because Gordon would have had some of his contacts in the US. This was a way to open the door to bring groups to Scotland.
It makes perfect sense.
I'm just,
you know, it was looking around.
Yeah, it was as simple as that. Looked at that, and we were very fortunate that our dad was prepared to give us some kind of a seed money just to make it, you know, to make it possible. Yeah. Which was basically just the two of us, you know, at the time kicking it off, and it all went according to plan. It went forwards, and as you know, way back then, it was you know, the golf courses in Scotland where we've been focused on. I mean, the facilities they had were pretty limited, pretty basic. The conditioning of the golf course was pretty basic. The green fees were, you know, a fraction of what they are now. The whole hospitality offering was entirely different, very limited. Communication, like a lot of businesses, was, you know, it was way before. Communication costs were huge then, you know, and now they're not. So anyway, it kind of rolled forward from there, and I mean, I guess it's really been 40 years moving forward.
Do you smile now looking at it, what it was like at the beginning?
Absolutely. And back then there were very few people involved. It's the one other company that was involved. There's a company called Intergolf. And it was actually started by we were probably the second one to kick it off, I would have said. But back in the kind of maybe late 70s or of that order, it was started by Fergus McCann called Intergolf, who then, when he then sold it, he took that money and went on to then do other things with it, and then obviously invested in Celtic Football Club and, you know, all the success he had there. But so we began as Caledonian Golf. It seemed like a good Scottish name for that. And then it evolved into Perry Golf, which was simply There was a travel agency in Atlanta called Perry Travel that we worked with to issue our airline tickets. And then they were effectively it was a small strip mall travel agency. They were selling their the business. So we bought it and developed Perry Golf. And that has actually stood us in good stead because it's on a kind of global basis. It's suitably generic. Doesn't really mean anything. Yeah. And I'm actually slightly embarrassed to say I quite often get asked where the name Perry came from. And I've got to say, you know what, I really don't know, because it was owned by Perry Communications, etc. And the people who were involved in that probably are all now passed away. So I probably just need to, come up with a story and stick with it. Fred Perry, Perry Combe, I don't know, the name of our dog or something. But so Perry Golf for 40 years. Obviously the whole golf tourism thing has hugely evolved in the world, but in, Scotland, Ireland, and the hospitality experiences that we have. And you see the places like Kingsbarns from the year 2000, and then Castle Stewart and other places that have probably helped, and they've been built specifically for golf tourism, to bring people in, and they have probably helped raise the whole bar across the board.
What's your decision-making process, on where you go, which courses?
Well, I think that most of them you go just by reputation. There's pretty much in Scotland, Ireland, there's the bucket list venues, and the trips that we've done, the land trips that we do to Scotland and Ireland probably still account for 80% of what we do, and it's more golf buddy trips. They'll travel with us once to Scotland or once to Ireland, and et cetera, et cetera. But kind of going hand in hand with that, we've kind of developed some golf cruising, which we kind of began that, I'm going to say 1997. I think the first time we were involved with a ship was when a company chartered the QE2 to take people down to the Ryder Cup at Valderrama. And I think we took 200 people down to that, on that. And then later on, from about 1999 to 2007, we would charter a small ship called the Clipper Adventurer, took 120 guests.
Was that the one where I was incredibly sick one night?
It probably was seasick, I would used to add, yeah. And we did that for a number of years, chartered it, and we take it we play golf around Scotland and take it to the Open. I remember having it at Carnoustie was the first one. I remember being anchored off Carnoustie for that amazing final round there in 99, anchored off in 2000 at St Andrews, and so we did that. And then we started a partnership with a cruise line called Azamara Cruise Line, which they've now got 4 ships of 700 guests, and it's the perfect size for us. We don't charter them, but we'll take groups on board them. It started as 2 or 3 or 4 a year. We're now up to nudging 30 a year all around the world, so pretty much 2 a month, and I think we go to something like 25 countries, something like 80 plus unique golf venues. I think 20 of the world's top 100.
How much can you tailor? Do you look at the handicaps of the people when you recommend, well, you should go here because these courses are not quite as demanding, or how much does that play into?
No, I would say that, if we set something up, like for instance, I'm just back from New Zealand, Australia, weeks down there, and we're playing at Cowrie Cliffs and Cape Kidnappers and venues like that, the big venues there. And I would say that all of these golf courses are playable by every level. It just depends what tees you go from. Yeah. And our audience for those trips is by and large couples, and they're probably in the 50 to late 70 age group,
right.
And they're very involved and embedded in the game of golf. They might not be the world's greatest golfers, but I'll say they're committed, serious golfers. You see a lot of people who have clearly been very good players in their younger days, but they're just now a little bit older. Yeah. Handicaps are creeping up, but we do see a lot of low handicap players on these trips, and everybody can get around these the venues, but it probably is tailored more to a North American audience. And as I say, we've got trips from New Zealand, Australia to Asia, to the Arabian Gulf, to South Africa, South America, Baltic Sea, Norway, British Isles. We've got the Open every year, and pretty much everywhere you think that you could play golf and access it from a cruise ship. That's kind of what we do. And we've got a great kick out of doing that, and that's been something for me being involved in golf. It's something I've spent the last 10 or 12 years particularly building up, and we're passionate about it, and we get great people involved in it. It's really been quite some to be involved in that.
This is obviously a Golf Australia magazine production. I mean, here in Australia, the places that you go to, in case some
absolutely. So obviously in New Zealand, we've got the Cape Kidnappers, Cowrie Cliffs. We go down to Royal Wellington Golf Club. We're there. We're down to Christchurch Golf Club, Otago Golf Club, the most southerly. That'll be the oldest club in the southern hemisphere, 150 years old. In Australia, and actually just today, we've got a ship is sailing into Hobart, Tasmania. Mm-hmm. They're going to play Tasmania Golf Club in the south of the island. I know that there's a spectacular golf course there, 7 Mile Beach, that is in the process of pretty close to opening. I had a great tour, thanks to you setting up, John, a couple of years ago. Beautiful place, so that's one we could take folk to. Barnbougle Dunes up in the north of Tasmania. In Melbourne, there's all the great sandbelt courses there. In Sydney, it's New South Wales, and it's the lakes, and there's some other ones there that we've used. So it's a lot of.
Are there places that resist, tourists, if you like? I mean, still.
In the world in general, or in
golf clubs?
Golf clubs, I mean, as in.
Are there places that you asked and couldn't go? Or
no, I would say that there will be some venues. Obviously, North America, has got clubs that are, uber private, and so you're only playing there as an accompanied guest of a member.
Right.
But if I look at the rest of the world in general, there will be a few examples of that. But by and large, most of the venues either are pay for play, and there's some fairly open access, or even the private clubs will take outside play on an organised, coordinated, planned in advance basis. Right. And that's the way around the British Isles as well. I mean, whether it's the Royal Dornoch or Royal County Down or Royal Portrush or wherever it might be, they all, do take that access. And I think I probably digress a little bit here now, but, for a lot of these clubs, even the private clubs that have got a very active membership, the revenue that comes in from outside play is very important. Yeah. And it helps them, with the facilities that they offer. And it helps with the conditioning of the golf course, and what you hopefully see if the balance is right.
You've always got to stay the right side of the line of not being a business and still staying a club.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So, I think that a lot of these places have got a great club ambience, and they know how to manage it in a way such that they can still deliver a great experience for their members at the times that it's only for members, and they can still deliver a great experience for the paying guests who are nowadays paying a lot of money, quite often a lot of money for that access, and they want, you've got to provide a great experience if you're going to charge that, but clearly it's you've got to look after both parties here, the membership and the play.
Before we move, last question: how did you survive COVID? That must have been terrible.
Yes. Well, actually, just sitting here, John, we're just looking out the window here and just remembering during COVID in 2020, 2021. I mean, basically, we and so many businesses involved in tourism, travel, it just ground to halt for 2 years. And so at the beginning of 2020, we would have at that point in time had a pretty, full sales book, order book for the year. And it just ground to halt. And then nobody knew how long it would last for. And we still had to probably keep on 70% of our overhead because our team had to be here to try and reschedule groups, because it might have been over in 3 months or 6 months.
Frightening time.
Exactly. So we had people groups were probably rescheduled 2 and 3 and 4 times, and you didn't know. And, luckily enough, we have a very astute and very prudent financial director, and we've always made sure we had good reserves. But that said, there's not a lot of businesses planned for, a rainy day. There's a rainy day. And
I don't think you can plan for that.
There's no revenue for 2 years, which is a bit of a monsoon.
Yeah.
But, everybody came through it. And I think that travel is still enjoying a great post-COVID boost in 22, 23, of a lot of people who, have missed out their travel opportunities in these years, and now they're out and they want to make the most of it. And you're still seeing that currently flying. And anyway, just to kind of put a kind of end to that part of the story, that, with my brother and I having started the business and run it for 40 years, there was, a time for some appropriate handover. And I'm very pleased that end of 2023 we found new owner.
So you're a bit like myself. You've gone part-time.
I've gone part-time, so I was for us it was very important to find somebody and investors who would continue with the team that we had, because we didn't, we've got a great team here, and to allow them to continue, didn't want to be bought by a large conglomerate where before you know it, 2 jobs is 1 job, or the jobs disappear, the brand dilutes, disappears. This ensures the continuation of it. And I was still working in it flat out full time until the end of 23. I'm now scaling back. I'm still involved in the business, enjoying what I'm doing, but I don't have,
Well,
there you go.
Which leads me to my last question, which is, what's your handicap these days?
Well, my handicap, John, is currently 4. But I wish I was playing to 4, because it's now with the new handicap system, and unless you're making the returns, it's my handicap is not. It's just pretty much static at that situation. I'm usually, if I'm out in a social game, I'm always begging for more shots,
Right.
but nobody gives me them.
Yeah, you're basically just an old fart, just like the rest of us. Come on.
I pretty much am. So it's certainly a long time from the days of the mid-70s of the flare trousers and the big hair and good golf to knee hair.
Speak for yourself.
Grey hair, knee hair.
Yeah.
But no, it's been an incredible run. I can't believe it's been 50 years or probably 55 years since I first played golf, and get my first lesson on a Sunday morning at Helensburgh Golf Club from Brian Anderson, who was a pro at the time and taught me for many years. But now he would probably just look at me, the golf fan, shake his head. I don't know.
Well, I get a lot of that as well. I remember Derek Small, who was the pro at Dunbar, taught me for a bit, and a lesson with Derek usually consisted of, see what you're doing there? Aye. Don't. That was the end of the lesson. And it's also the end of the interview. Colin, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure as always. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
John, thank you very much. It was great. Thanks for coming down to visit. And thoroughly enjoyed it. Good to reminisce and chat. So thanks a lot.
Let's go to lunch.
Okay.
Cheers.
Colin Dalgleish there, a fellow lifer and a great contributor to the game. A big thanks to Colin and indeed Huggy for taking the time to bring us that chat. Well, I hope you've hit the follow button wherever you listen to us, because that way you won't miss our next.
Always felt like, that's how the US Open is, and it's sort of like, it's not fun, but it's a good experience.
That's the evergreen Soren Kjeldsen. Next time on The Thing About Golf.